Welcome into another edition of In Touch with Indiana Sports, powered by thehoosier.com. Also, as always, this episode sponsored by Academy Sports and Outdoors. I'll tell you more about what they've got going on here in just a little bit. But welcome in. John Alden with you. As always, Mitchell Paige joining us here in a little bit. Also, Ant Wright will be returning to the show for the first time since, I believe, maybe March, towards the end of basketball season last year. He's going to help us recap Indiana's first two games. I mean, not necessarily break down every individual piece of what happened in Darian DeVries' first two games coaching the Hoosiers, but really just kind of give mine and his thoughts on what this new style of IU team looks like, right? Because I think it's pretty telling early on that this is not the same Indiana basketball that was being played under Mike Woodson. And I mean that in a good way, right? Not that I want to dwell on what was the Mike Woodson era, because we beat that horse to death over the course of the last several seasons, of course. But this is a new day in Indiana basketball. So we'll talk about that with Ant Wright a little bit later. And of course, Mitchell and I are going to react to the wild finish that was what Indiana was able to do. Well, I should say the offense was able to do on that final drive against Penn State to secure 10-0 and keep not only playoff hopes alive, because those would still be there with a loss, but I mean, keeping the bye alive, the number one seed alive, a Big Ten championship appearance alive. So many things happened in that game that a lot of it was in question. And Mitchell and I are going to talk about every angle, I feel like, of what happened toward not only at the end of that game, but just what happened throughout the course of Indiana's game against Penn State. So two really big things happening. I mean, we're in the heart of it right now, folks. It's crossover season with football and basketball. Indiana football only has 2 games left out of 3 weeks in the regular season. You got Wisconsin this Saturday at home. You have the bye week, the second bye week after that. And then, of course, you'll end things with the battle for the Old Oaken Buckets on the road at Purdue. And then if things go the way that we think they will and should, then Indiana will be in their very first ever Big Ten football championship game appearance against likely Ohio State. It could be a number of other teams. Of course, if Ohio State does lose to Michigan the way that they had the last 4 or 5 seasons, whatever it's been, then I do believe Michigan would then get that spot. It also could be Oregon in some scenarios, I believe, even USC maybe, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot of ways that things can play out still in regards to who Indiana would face off with in Indianapolis. And of course, whether or not Indiana would even get to Indianapolis, they still got to take care of business as well. But that is what things are looking like for the next few weeks with Indiana football. And then I really want to I want to save my thoughts on what happened with Indiana basketball for when we discuss with Ant Wright, because I do want to go ahead and say this part of it real quick. But whenever I was watching that game against Marquette on Sunday, this is the first time that I think I've enjoyed watching Indiana basketball in 2 to 3 years. There were some fun moments during the last era of Indiana basketball with Mike Woodson, but this felt different. And maybe it's because it's new. Maybe it's because the threes are flying in a way that we haven't seen since really the Tom Crean era of Indiana. And speaking of Tom Crean, it was very much a pleasure to hear him on the call with Dave. Was it Dave O'Brien? Whoever it was. It was nice to hear him on the behind the microphone during that game, especially when you consider the fact that not only he formerly coached Indiana, but before that he was at Marquette, where he coached Dwayne Wade to a Final Four. So I don't know. I heard him say on the broadcast that he wasn't expecting to be doing that game until I think the night before. I don't know how that came about, but it felt like it was a match made in heaven considering the two teams that were playing each other. So very nice to have Tom Crean on the call. I don't know if he's exclusive to ESPN. If that's the case, then there probably won't be too many other times where Indiana gets to have him on the call this season because of course, the deal with Fox and having what seems like 80 to 90% of the games, if not more, on the Fox networks. Unless, of course, you're playing against a team that has the ESPN affiliation, like a team from the SEC or ACC, that sort of thing. Most of Indiana's games will be, of course, as always, on Fox, CBS, or the NBC family of networks. But either way, good to hear Tom Crean on the call in that Marquette game. That's all I'll say on both football and basketball. I'll save the rest of my thoughts on what's going on with those two teams for our guest segments. And then at the end, after we get through both of those, I'll talk a little briefly about the Colts, what they were able to do this past weekend over in Germany. And then we'll wrap up, as always, with our non-revenue shout-outs. So before we get into our segment with Mitchell Paige, I want to go ahead and tell you once again about our friends at Academy Sports and Outdoors, what they got going on right now. They have the most festive gear of the year. Don't miss the limited edition Magellan Outdoor Christmas Market Collection right now only at Academy. Get exclusive 2025 gear and gifts for all your holiday parties, fun family photos, and Christmas morning traditions. You can check out the entire collection, from matching pajamas to holiday print fishing shirts and dresses to exclusive new Mossy Oak Snowdrift camo styles and more. Shop in-store or at academy.com. And if you need it fast, you can get same-day delivery powered by DoorDash. Let your holiday fun begin with the Magellan Outdoors Christmas Market Collection only at Academy. Joining me now, Mitchell Paige, once again here on In Touch with Indiana Sports. Welcome back. Happy November 11th. Technically, when this show gets released.
I like it. Happy 10-0.
Happy
because boy,
10-0.
did it feel like we were not going to be able to say that for pretty much the entire game.
Yeah, there's so many places that we can start when it comes to the Indiana Penn State game, but let's just start with the 10-0. You already mentioned that. You mentioned a couple things, but second time ever that Indiana started the season 10-0. Of course, last year being the only other time. And now with Wisconsin coming up next week, they have a chance to be 11-0 for the first time ever. Of course, last year they were 11-1. That first loss came in game 11 against Ohio State. So this would be their first time being 11-0. And then, of course, chasing a perfect season, 12-0 against Purdue, which again, at this point seems likely. You never know. We'll cross that path over here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Of course, there's a bye week in between these last two games. But either way, somehow, some way, the Indiana Hoosiers found a way in Happy Valley when the odds were, for the first time this season, against them. I feel like, there's been some moments where Indiana had to make a play, but I'm talking about in previous games, but they always responded before the other team was able to really secure momentum and take a lead, that sort of thing. Penn State was able to do something that no other Indiana opponent so far this year had been able to do, or not able to do, I guess I should say, and that was have a fourth quarter lead on the Hoosiers. And so much so that it came down to a final 2-minute drill drive that, Mitchell, I was telling you right before we started this segment, I've rewatched that final drive. I couldn't tell you how many times over the last 24 hours.
I've had people texting me nonstop that they've done the exact same thing. It was the most improbable. Indiana kind of got pushed around, if I'm honest. They just got emotionally overwhelmed. It felt
they were letting the moment kind of get to them, and I think it's okay to admit
I'm not even sure that it was Indiana. It felt more like Penn State. The stars were just aligning. They played so hard with so much emotion. It felt like the team, the fans, the coaches were just letting it all out. Like, obviously, they have not had the season that they want to have, and it just felt like they're just exploded, and that's about as good as they can play. I know this is whatever. You can say whatever you want. They're 3-6 now, but that felt like the Penn State that we were supposed to get all year. The quarterback was dealing. They were blocking. They were moving us around. No one has moved us around all season, and their offensive line was kind of imposing their will. Iowa didn't even move us around like that. It just felt like the stars, if there had to be 100 stars that aligned for Penn State to win the game, they got like 99 and a half of them. everything just seemed like it came together. They had us on our back, on our heels. Just a really, really impressive game. And sorry.
And I think we said last week, and I'd said in probably some other episodes too, just talking with people about the Penn State situation. Penn State has the roster to compete with anybody. They just spiraled out of control because of the lofty expectations that were under James Franklin that they could not meet, still can't meet under Terry Smith. Of course, they came about as close as they could have this past weekend. But what people won't see from the outside is that Indiana beat, on paper, a really good Penn State team. Now, the SEC, national analysts, they're not going to care one bit about that. Of course, Penn State's 3-6. Overall, they're not a good football team, but they have a lot of good football players. And I know that may sound, elementary in a way, but like that's just the truth. This is just a team that things didn't come to fruition for them this season. They figured things out in this game against Indiana. It was their home opener of sorts with their interim coach, Terry Smith, who is a former Nittany Lion himself. He had them ready to roll. Their back was, I was going to say against the wall. That's not really what it was. They had no pressure at all. They were playing as loose as they absolutely wanted to for the better part of the back end of that game. And Indiana was feeling all sorts of pressure because, let's face it, there is now pressure for this Indiana team to finish the season unbeaten, the regular season that is, put up a good showing in the Big Ten championship game, likely against Ohio State, and then go on some sort of run in the college football playoff. Like, there are expectations for Indiana, and for the first time this past Saturday, this season, they were tightened up a little bit until they got to that final drive.
Until they weren't.
Until they weren't.
It was crazy. There was, I bet, 10 different times during the game when something would happen. The most obvious one is the pick coming out of the first set or start of the second half, where it just feels like, all right, now we're about to hit the gas pedal and accelerate, and this is going to go how every other game goes.
It was right after they threw they could have thrown a pick on both those plays. It was
right.
the deep pass, and then of course the one that was bobbled around that Indiana ended up coming up with. At that moment, I thought, okay, this is going to be another beatdown in the second half for Indiana.
Yeah, and I think even if you're an Indiana fan or just a casual nobody, if you came away from that game thinking anything other than, man, did Penn State play super hard and deserve to win that game, I don't know what, I can't help you. They did. They did everything right. It felt, there was one image where I can't remember his name. He's got two last names. Their D lineman that.
Oh, Dennis Sutton. I believe that's his name.
Just obvious, clearly the emotional leader of the team. He was walking out, man, on a mission. He was a Terminator. Every time their defense would come out, he had this look in his eye like he was not going to be denied. And for 58 and a half minutes, he wasn't. And I've got a buddy that's a Penn State fan. And it's not like a trash talking type of relationship. He's just a really good person. The text that I was receiving as it was happening, the devastation, I cannot even imagine. We went through some tough losses for sure. But Cignetti even said, I feel like Cignetti never gets emotional, never loses.
No, this was without a doubt the most I don't want to say the most un-Cignetti like. This was a very raw post-game interview on Fox after the game.
When you have Cignetti rattled, you did something right. Because even in the losses last year, he still wasn't rattled. It was still very business-like, go back to work. You could tell that one meant a little something to him, and he was almost surprised. You surprised Curt Cignetti, which I don't know if anyone's done that in the 63 or whatever years of his life that he's existed. Feels like he's never been surprised, and just an unbelievable. I do want to toot my own horn here for a moment.
Sure, go ahead.
I think we talked about this yesterday. Maybe we didn't. On this show, after Indiana State, I told you that Charlie Becker was my favorite player on the team.
And
it wasn't.
I think you did say that.
And it wasn't because he was out there making a bunch of catches. And we got a bunch of guys that do that already. But he starts on every special team. He's a redshirt freshman. This kid's got an unbelievable future. I didn't anticipate what we saw yesterday.
Dude had 7 receptions, 118 yards, and some of the most ridiculous catches that you could have seen in that game.
The catch that get them to the 7-yard line, if the Omar Cooper catch doesn't happen, that's probably the catch of Indiana's season.
Yes.
Truly. They went back-to-back potential catch of the years to win that game. I'd be curious. I didn't look at it, but the probability, ESPN probability, had to be 99.9% win for Penn State. And you just
let's back it up a little bit.
Soul.
We talked kind of about Charlie Becker specifically. Let's go to the beginning of that drive. Of course, the pressure's already on Indiana to do something, or else the game's over. And you start that drive off by getting sacked for 7 yards. 2nd and 17. You have 0 timeouts. Clock's running. At that point, I'm sitting on my couch and I was already getting ready to accept defeat, but the sack, I even told my wife, because she was watching with me, I said, that's usually the dagger. You get sacked on your final drive whenever you have to get some momentum going. That felt like that was it. But Fernando Mendoza does exactly what he's done all season long whenever he's faced adversity. It's usually after an interception. This time it was the drive after the drive, if that makes sense. I think they went 3 and out in the drive.
They did.
After his interception. This was, of course, the following after that. But whenever his back's been against the wall, I don't get how his demeanor, I would never expect somebody like Fernando Mendoza, who seems so happy-go-lucky and cheerful whenever he's talking during his interviews. The dude just locks in whenever it is the most intense part of a game. You've seen it in Iowa, you've seen it in Oregon, and now you've seen it a third time this season against Penn State. And this one was without a doubt the most surgical drive that you could have put together. And I know people on the Penn State side of things were kind of blaming it on their prevent defense, that sort of thing. Again, it is what it is. But to be able to find basically every receiver at least once during that drive. Omar Cooper caught a couple receptions. EJ Williams caught one. Riley Nowakowski caught one. And, of course, the big Charlie Becker grab. I mean, not only does that speak volumes about the receiving core, it speaks volumes about the entire offense in general. To be able to do what they did, and I don't care if it was against 3-5, now 3-6 Penn State, that was a championship level drive. That showed me that there's not a single situation that Indiana can be in where that they're going to have the ability to do something. They may not always get it done. They are human after all, even though they seem very inhuman during that drive. But we now know that even in the most unlikely of scenarios, they have the ability to still find a way to pull it out.
Yeah, I saw something on Twitter. JD Piquel from On3 was talking about, like, what do you do when you don't have your fastball? What do you do when you don't have your A game? And 58 and a half minutes, that's about as far from a championship level game that Indiana played as you could get. And you're exactly right. Towards the end, you're starting to think, okay, well, I mean, this could be a time that you take one on the chin. Ohio State loses to Michigan, and then they refocus, right? Like they're just kind of coasting, take one on the chin to Michigan. All right, let's reset. Now let's go win. So you kind of take that mindset, but you can also learn a lot from winning too. And you took your punch, you got absolutely haymakered, beat you up and down the field, and you still find a way to win. Championship level drive is exactly right. I mean, it's every team has a game where they're just kind of off. Every team. I don't get the best teams ever have a game where they just don't have the juice. But the best teams ever find a way to win anyways. And even though it took them way longer than the rest of us or than the fans would have liked, I mean, I think that however long that actually was in real time, maybe 8 minutes, it's the greatest 8 minutes that Indiana football fans have ever had.
This may be a superficial thing, and I guess it really doesn't matter at all in the grand scheme of things, but do you think after all they've been through, and I know it's Penn State, right? One of the biggest programs in college football. Do you think they would have rushed the field if they would have pulled that out? I think they would have. After all the nightmare scenarios that they've dealt with, to be able to just kind of finally get one, I feel like they would have had that moment for themselves, even if some of like the Ohio States of the world would have made fun of them for it, that sort of thing.
Are you talking about fans or the players?
I'm talking about fans. Would fans have rushed the field if Penn State would have pulled it out?
It's hard to say. I think if that game happens in Bloomington, it probably is a 40-point game. The Stars, I talked about 100 Stars, 40 of them had to be an engaged fan base. And they got that. But I think, regardless, you have a play like that to essentially win the game. I know there was 30 seconds left or whatever, but I almost ran around my neighborhood with my shirt off.
Dude, my baby was sleeping. I mentioned my wife was watching the game with me. She was holding our sleeping baby. And I've been in this situation a couple of other times already this season, most notably, of course, the Iowa game. I don't know if the baby was sleeping there, but I was still trying to be quiet. But I remember the Oregon game. It was either, I don't know if it was the game-winning touchdown or if it was an interception, whatever it was. But I remember making a noise. Baby was not happy at that point. So I made a conscious effort. If Indiana was going to get the touchdown in that scenario, I could not speak a word. I had to be as quiet as I could. And so instead of making any sort of noise during the touchdown, I was flailing my arms. I looked about as ridiculous as you could have without making any noise, but it was still a great way to get out some energy. But also a very interesting way to celebrate that sort of thing, I guess.
I was holding Maggie throughout the whole thing. We were standing up. She was pacing behind the couch with me. She hadn't seen me like that before.
She hadn't? Okay.
Because every game is a 70-point game. There was nothing to be up in arms about. When Laura and I were standing next to each other for the last play, like behind the couch, we were a little bit psycho. She ran a half marathon yesterday.
I saw that.
And it was a legitimate question if I took more steps than her yesterday. Just from all my pacing.
Dude, I also saw you post on social media that you do household chores whenever you're nervous in between TV timeouts of a game or something like that.
Yeah, it just go put the dishes away or change the laundry. Just something to escape for 3 seconds. I can't do it. I don't know how I used to watch. Like I would sit and watch every second, commercials included. I can't do it. It's not good for my heart. It is not good at all. But yeah, I've got Maggie in my right hand. I'm trying to do the same thing because I had already scared her once by something happening, and she started crying. So now I've got her. She's settled down. Ref signals touchdown, and Laura and I look at each other, and we both just start screaming. So Maggie starts screaming for the complete opposite reason that we're screaming. It took us a little while to get her back calmed down.
Oh, my gosh.
I think she's fully bought in now. We had a little conversation, Maggie and I, today about, Hoosier fandom and what it's like. And we had to let out that emotion because of all the years of pain and suffering that her dad endured personally.
That's true.
All of this is real and raw, and you're going to be a part of this like now. So there's no more crying. There's only excitement. I don't think she got all of it, all the message, but we're going to keep talking.
Yeah, it'll get there. It'll get there.
Yeah, for people that don't know, she's also 16 months old. So, yeah, it's
let's I want to go and move on to, I guess, the rankings that will come out Tuesday night. I've already come to terms with this, and in the grand scheme of things, I feel like it's really not that big of a deal. A&M's gonna jump them this upcoming rankings, and this is because A&M didn't have issue with Missouri. That's a top 25 win on the road with them.
Yeah,
and again,
Missouri's
these
got
things
a great defense too, and they put up 38 points. They deserve to be second. They played.
Things will play out, of course, as these weeks go on. Of course, Texas A&M, I believe, plays Texas to end their season, if I'm not mistaken. They may have another big one in between somewhere. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, as long as Ohio State continues to take care of business, if you go beat them in the Big Ten championship, you're going to be number one. You're going to get the one seed. So it doesn't
The only thing that could be interesting if Indiana goes into the final, if they go into Big Ten championship weekend as a 3 and lose, especially if you don't lose close, you're probably no longer getting a bye, but you are hosting a playoff game at that point, which is, again, something that they didn't get to do last year.
Yeah, I think they're probably, unless the wheels fall off, probably locked into at least host. I think that even if they would have, in the scenario you're talking about where they get the doors blown off somehow, now I want to be on record. I think Indiana, they'll probably be a 3-4 maybe point favor or underdog. I think Indiana wins by 10. That's what I think is going to happen.
Against OSU,
Indiana,
saying?
Yeah, Ohio State's a great team, but Indiana just – I know they got punched a little, but you can't –
It'll be very interesting. I know, by the way, we mentioned Wisconsin, who they're playing this weekend. They just beat top 25 Washington, again, at home. They'll be at Indiana this upcoming Saturday. I don't know what that says about Wisconsin. It may say more about Washington than it does about the Badgers, but I fully expect these last 2 games with Indiana to be maulings.
Yeah, I talked about it, the punch that they needed. Every team needs to get punched a little bit, and how do you respond? They'll reset. I don't think that Indiana was maybe hearing all the noise, how good they were. This team's for real, blah, blah, blah. But if they did, they're going to reset now because you can lose any given week. It doesn't matter. But I do want to make a point about the seedings, eventual seedings. I think even if Indiana in the Big Ten championship was number 2 and they lost by 3 scores, I think there's a chance that they would drop out anyways.
No, they would. 5. They wouldn't be a top 4. They wouldn't be.
I think that because Georgia or whoever the SEC team that doesn't play in the SEC championship obviously won't have anything that no one will have any idea or a different idea from what
it'll be a different way to evaluate them.
Exactly. Like it's something that you lose big, you're getting dropped no matter what. I think the same thing goes in the SEC championship. It feels like right now people are like, all right, top 4 seeds are Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Alabama. Those are the top 4 seeds, kind of no matter what happens in the championship games. But if Indiana or Ohio State loses by a bunch, they'll probably drop all the way out. Texas A&M, Alabama loses by a bunch. I think they would drop out as well. It just the margins are so close up there at the top that it's just the reality of it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out over these next several weeks. Also, something that we haven't touched on at all today, I'm kind of surprised, the Heisman Mendoza talk. Of course, he had his one of many, but this one is the definitive Heisman moment, the drive that he had, and then, of course, the toss to Omar Cooper, and probably the best catch of the college football season, maybe the best play of the college football season in general, the Mendoza to Cooper catch where you get the toe tap that almost didn't happen. The amount of times they showed the slow-mo of the feet swinging around, if the other foot would have hit first on the outside of the perimeter of the end zone, it's at that point you have 4th and goal, and who knows what would have happened in that situation. So, but again, that's not how things played out. He did have his Heisman moment. Do you think it's his award to lose? I've kind of said this for a few weeks that if it ends up being Indiana versus Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, that the winning quarterback, whether it's Julian Sayin or Fernando Mendoza, likely wins the Heisman in that scenario.
I kind of agree. Julian Sayin has been surgical. I don't care. There's a lot of Indiana people right now talking about, his receivers, it's pretty easy to throw it around. I watched a little bit of him against Purdue. That dude puts the ball right on the money. It wouldn't matter if my next door neighbor that's 70 years old was out there playing receiver. He just slings the thing. Some of the throws he makes are so ultra impressive. If I was betting on it, I would probably say Sayin is who I would bet on right now. But obviously everything's out in front of Mendoza as it stands, which is all you can really hope for. It doesn't feel like any one player has really taken the reins. Mendoza's numbers aren't super explosive. Neither are Saiyans. So it's just kind of a weird year. It just feels like every week there's going to be a bunch of movement and who's the
Yeah.
favorite. I just would have a hard time picking one right now. You go take care of business in the Big Ten championship against who most people think is the best team in the country. Yeah, I think he's what has happened. I think that drive earned him an invite to New York, like solidified
Yeah.
an invite. Because only 3 guys go, I think.
I thought it was 4 or 5. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be total. I really don't know.
If it's 4 or 5, then see, we don't have to have these conversations very often, so I have no idea.
Yeah, what does Indiana know about the Heisman Trophy?
Yeah, I have no idea how this process works. But if it's 5, then he locked it up a long time ago. But it solidified him being kind of right there at the end.
Yeah. Did Tevin Coleman, did he get to go? Did Tevin Coleman get to go? I thought he went to New York for some reason.
For the running back award.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, which he didn't win somehow. I have no idea. If we want to
remember who he lost to? That was the year. There was a lot of really good running backs in the Big Ten, I feel like, that year.
I think Melvin Gordon also had 2,000 yards, but we played all year with Danny Cameron and Xander Diamont at quarterback, and I think Xander was a freshman. So,
gosh, Xander Diamont.
And Xander was an unbelievable player. Like, he was awesome, but as a true freshman, you just are kind of throwing guys out there because Sudfeld goes down, Trey had transferred out, Cam Kaufman had transferred out. So really, you had a pretty good idea if you were playing against us where we were going. We were probably giving the ball to 6, and he still had 2,000 yards. It's crazy that he didn't win that award. But, yeah, that was a little aside. But I think one of the coolest parts about it is I think the person that's thinking about the Heisman the least is Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah. You can tell anytime any of the players, and Cignetti as well, but I think it is definitely surprising sometimes, at least compared to what we were used to in the past, how every single player, when they talk in front of the media, they are locked in. They're not taking any of the bait, the rat poison that the media will throw at them. They know the goals at hand, and that all of the side things like a Heisman Trophy, that sort of stuff, that will come if you take care of business the way that you've done all season long. And so it's just crazy that we're seeing this play out the way that it's playing out. I mean, an undefeated season. You always joked at the beginning of every year, like 12-0, baby.
For 7 years.
Yeah. And this is,
I think we've been doing some podcasts of some kind together for 7 years. And every year we look at the schedule and I predict 12-0. And we
always
laugh.
Look back to this is a deep cut, but I think it was I'm blanking on his last name, but it was a defensive lineman, and it was Darius Latham. He was asked, I think it was a Big Ten Media Day, about Indiana football expectations, and I always remember him just saying 12-0 and just being very bleak and blunt about it, and thinking, like, that's cool, man. Like, they have goals. They're probably not going to do that, but, like, it's cool that they're having that mindset, that sort of thing. But now here it is. I mean, everything's always been a pipe dream for Indiana football until Cignetti arrived, but now they're 2 games away, 3 weeks away. We have to remember the bye week between Wisconsin and Purdue from an unbeaten regular season. And then it's unfortunate that they won't get to potentially celebrate it at home. You have Purdue alternating home and home every single year. This game will be at Purdue, but it also, that adds a little bit of extra juice to it as well. When you think about it, you're going to go into the rivals' home turf and get to potentially rub into their face that you've gone unbeaten, while they're also down in the cellar of the Big Ten with their brand new head coach.
Yeah, you win this weekend, that Purdue game is going to have some juice. I cannot wait to be in West Lafayette.
On Black Friday, a very unique way to have the game this year too.
Yeah, my instinct tells me there'll be just all Indiana fans there.
And I say, do you think it'll be more than 50% Indiana fans at Ross-Ade on that? No, you don't think so?
I think that, I mean, think about if Purdue was 11-0 and they're having the run that we're having. I would be furious.
I would too, but I think Indiana fans are so apathetic when things aren't going well that they pretend that they either pretend they don't care or they tune it out. One of the two.
True. Purdue fans are a little bit different. They and I think they got kind of taken over by Ohio State this last weekend. But I made a comment. I think I might have texted you and Dustin like 5 weeks ago. Purdue was playing, Minnesota or something. They're not maybe actually playing Minnesota.
They sold out the game though, I think.
Unbelievable.
Getting at, yeah.
Unbelievable. They were like 2-4 and playing not the number one team in the country.
That wouldn't happen now. That still wouldn't happen now.
No way. I give them a ton of credit. I think that will be a hostile, raucous environment on a Friday night. You're kind of the premier.
It's on NBC, prime time on NBC, Friday night.
Yeah, I think we'll get everything that we hope for and more out of the board.
I mean, that's the thing. They don't really have a lot to play for, but they're playing to spoil the perfect season. What better way to piss off your rival than ruin what would be your very first ever 12-0 season?
Yeah, this would hurt 100 times more than losing whatever a billion times in a row in basketball to Purdue.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
I don't even. This would be the biggest dagger that Purdue could ever put in the heart of Indiana fans forever. So this is on paper. The game is not played on paper, but Indiana should win both these games by 50. But Wisconsin's got some juice. They got a coach that they're committed to. And Purdue.
Very Tom Allen-like coach. And I would never have guessed Luke Fickell was that guy, but that is seeming to be the case, apparently.
Yeah, which, whatever. But you're going to have two big tests. Wisconsin's coming in with some momentum. I'm excited to see the crowd. I know it's sold out, but the energy level of the crowd.
Yeah, it's another noon game, senior day. Plus, it's the last home game. There's got to be some juice.
Yeah, there was. I mean, it's early. I don't usually start talking about who's going to the game till a couple days before, but I'm already getting some texts like, "Hey, are you going to be at the game?" And like UCLA, Michigan State, that was not happening. It just didn't feel like there was a ton of life. Maybe because of homecoming, you had some guys coming back, but they weren't really focused on the game. This one, it feels like there's some juice. I expect the stadium to be kind of riding high. Probably the last time that you see Indiana in Memorial Stadium, things go the way we want it to.
Potentially, yeah. If things continue to move on that upward trajectory, we'll, of course, then we won't see them at Memorial Stadium, but and we don't want to see them at Memorial Stadium. That means that they're still winning. That means they're playing a neutral site.
The goal is to not see them after Saturday in Memorial Stadium.
That's true. All right, Mitchell, we've gone long enough. Of course, we could talk about this for forever, and I'm so glad we're not talking about a loss because I was sitting on my couch this past Saturday. I had a moment. I sat there and I was kind of silently collecting my thoughts. I was like, what in the world am I going to say when we record this upcoming segment? Like, I wasn't prepared for a loss before the game started. And thankfully that's not what we did here today, but I was worried about it.
This is what we'll end on. Is that the first time since Cignetti took over and there was like the amount of belief, maybe it happened early last year, but where you're watching a game and you feel like, oh no, we've seen this story before in Indiana.
Oh, yes. No, I don't want to say it felt like old Indiana because that's not really what I was thinking of. It just felt like, I mean, it hadn't happened yet. The two losses Indiana has were teams they were supposed to lose to, teams that they were outmatched against, and they still competed in some ways, not necessarily against Ohio State, but they showed some life late in the game against Notre Dame. But this would have been the first time that I would have said that the team came out flat and wasn't very prepared, especially in the second half. That's what I would have said if they didn't pull it out this past weekend.
That's what I mean. It's like, oh no, we had the game right when we wanted it. Because I didn't feel like this against Oregon. Even when we threw the pick six, it just still felt like we were dominating the game.
No, Mendoza's pick against Penn State felt like that was bad news.
Even when we were winning 20-7, it felt like we were still getting pushed around a little, and it was just
we had some kind of fluky. We didn't mention this. We scored off some fluky turnovers, and I hate to call them because you still create them, and it is something good that the defense did. But when that's where your points are coming from, that's where things can kind of feel the way that they felt this past Saturday.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. It felt like we're winning on the scoreboard only. And it felt that way for pretty much the entire game, and it's the first time that I've felt like, "Oh, no, we're gonna snatch defeat from the jaws of victory like I've seen so many times," and they just don't do that.
They don't do it. They refuse to lose, as Cignetti said in his post-game interview. And hopefully they refuse to lose against Wisconsin and Purdue as well. Hopefully guys get healthy. I was glad Aiden Fisher was back. Glad that Charlie Becker. I mean, I want Elijah Surratt back, but I'm happy to know that Charlie Becker's waiting in the crosshairs for his moment, because that dude could be wide receiver one on a number of Big Ten teams right now, I feel like. And then I know we've talked extensively about him.
This is another big play that is not going to get talked about when you talk about the future. And look at us going now. We tried to end this 4 minutes ago. This is the Midwest goodbye that I've ever seen. But there was a play early in the game, 4th and 1, and they handed the ball to Kobe Martin. And
that was his only touch of the game.
If that doesn't tell you how much they value him and see his future and trust that kid that never gets any carries, imagine what he's doing at practice to earn that kind of trust and what he's done in games. That moment, and obviously Charlie Becker, you just look to the future now. You're like, all right, now we can start really stacking these guys that are homegrown. We don't have to take them from the portal. But I think they're missing Drew Evans a lot.
Yeah, offensive line was the biggest weakness. I don't think we talked much about that. But yeah, Drew Evans, and then you lost Khalil Benson mid-game. I don't know the extent of his injury right now, but that could be problematic if he's gone a long period of time.
Yeah, I think he's gone out of the game like in the last 4 games, like hobbling off, and then he's in the next play. I'm pretty sure that's who Cignetti was talking about a couple weeks ago when they said we got guys falling on the ground for some reason. Don't know where that came from.
I don't remember hearing that, but that's funny.
He did, yeah, he said that, which maybe that's who he's talking about. I don't know, because he hobbled off like he tore his Achilles, and then he was in the next play. So
maybe he's not getting his NIL money or so, check bounce or something.
Well, he played the next play. I don't really know.
He was being stupid, by the way. Hopefully he doesn't hear that.
Yeah, no. They need to get healthy. You need Surratt. Surratt is your guy. When you have Charlie Becker played great. He made some unbelievable catches, but those aren't even 50-50 balls. Those are like 1% of the time you make those plays. Maybe that's what he does. We'll see going forward. But Elijah Surratt is he's your wide receiver one. I think you felt that the entire day. He's the guy that can separate. He can make plays in one-on-one coverage. We really, really missed that back shoulder field throw that it seems like Mendoza just puts on a frozen rope. So need him back at survive Wisconsin. Just go out and take care of business. Win by 1 or 50, doesn't matter. I think the Hoosiers are really needing a bye week right now. So
it's coming up, though. It's coming up.
Yeah. Sorry.
But you're good. We're ready to wrap this thing up, put a bow on it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, Mitchell, as always, great conversation, fun time. Hopefully you're not getting sick with all the coughing, and we'll chat again next week.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it. Hopefully 11-0.
As always, love our conversations with Mitchell. Went a lot longer than I think either one of us anticipated to, but the talking points that were there with what happened in Happy Valley this past Saturday, I think it warrants the amount of different things that we kind of looked at during that, especially there's all of the implications. This is November in college football, which is something that Indiana fans aren't used to, and several other fan bases, we should say as well. But I mean, Indiana's not, other than last year, of course, they've never been in these, moments where if you don't deliver, you may screw over yourself when it comes to postseason matters, that sort of thing. So, of course, love our conversations with Mitchell, and we'll continue to chat with him over, as we get towards the, down to the nitty gritty of the last part of the season and then into the postseason. So very exciting stuff. All right. Going to get into some Indiana basketball discussion here with Ant Wright here momentarily. But now I want to go ahead and tell you real quick about our friends at BetMGM. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code ON3 and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager. Here's how it works. First, you'll download the BetMGM app and sign up using code ON3, as I mentioned before. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll then receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up and make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary. 21 and over. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Also, HOPE-NY, 877-8-HOPE-NY. You can also text that number as well. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable. Bonus bets that expire in 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. All righty, joining me now on In Touch with Indiana Sports for the first time in a while, Mr. Ant Wright. Welcome back. I appreciate you coming on with me.
Anytime, man.
So how are you feeling? We're back with college basketball. Does it feel like it's college basketball season yet to you?
Yes and no. I think, this year I didn't have a lot of content to load up in the beginning. I've been just kind of wait and see, and I've been very methodical about my approach this season, and I've been more laid back and more, being more reactionary, what I mean? And just try to just get the pulse of what's going on out there. But a lot of really good talent across the country, not just in the league. And this year I am trying to do more with like the NBA draft, and that should be a lot of fun. But no, man, it's Big Ten basketball time. It's different for Indiana. Like, you guys look forward to basketball usually like middle of September, but now you guys.
I know it's weird with football for the second year in a row. This year, I feel like they're even better than last season, considering the teams that they've beaten. They have one of the craziest finishes I've ever seen as an Indiana fan against Penn State this past weekend.
Absolutely.
And the people are thinking about both football and basketball right now. You got the brand new Darian DeVries era with an entire new roster of players. Two of them in particular that I kind of want to talk about right now that have really showed out, especially in the game against Marquette this past weekend. Yeah. Tucker DeVries, of course, the son of the head coach, and then Lamar Wilkerson, who is kind of the cream of the crop when it comes to transfer portal guys this past offseason. What do you kind of make of this new look Indiana team right now through 2 games?
It's a fun group. It's a really fun group. I don't think that's like a surprise to anybody to hear, but I did put like two of the main points for this season, especially like November and early December, is you really want Lamar and Tucker's chemistry to really elevate this team, and you want them to be on very similar pages. They worked very well together. The second thing was they had to be really tough and nasty defensively, because I don't think they have the size to really kind of play conservative or play a very balanced type of basketball. Like, you really need to get after the guards, because if you get after the guards, that mitigates the front court a bit. It's I use this analogy all the time where, how do you stop a really good wide receiving group? You get after the quarterback, right? Because the quarterback can't throw it 20, 30 yards downfield if he's running for his life behind the line of scrimmage. Same thing, where if you are pushing back where the guards initiate, several feet beyond where they're comfortable, that's going to move their entire offense back. It's going to throw off timing. It's going to limit touches down low. And that's where you can really get after teams. So defensively, it's been nice to see. Now, Marquette they have some things to figure out themselves on who their guy is going to be. Losing someone like Cam Jones is huge. So they have to figure themselves out, but coming out and just kind of, taking their pride away, just throughout the game, just, wearing them down was just very impressive.
Yeah, I saw something, and again, I don't know how accurate it was. I believe it was an accurate statement. It was the first time that Shaka Smart, as a Division I head coach, had ever had a team score over 100 points on him, which is pretty surprising.
Really? Okay.
I could be either saying that
I could definitely
incorrectly
see
or
that.
maybe that's an incorrect statement, but I saw something along the lines of that.
You don't see it
yesterday.
much. You don't see it much for sure because he is one of those. There's like you think defensive-minded head coach, you think Chris Beard, you think Mick Cronin, you think Shaka Smart. These. You think Rick Barnes. These guys are defensive-minded first, right? And it's offensive second. You don't see those guys giving up 100 points very often. If a team scores high, it's like maybe in the 80s, but like no, never 100. Granted, it wasn't like the last 19 seconds, but who cares? Yeah. It's still a hundo,
Do you feel like with Wilkerson and DeVries in particular, do you think that's a 1-2 punch that can consistently? I mean, obviously they're not going to score 100 points as a team every single night, especially when you get into conference play. But do you think those are two guys that Indiana will be able to rely on night in and night out to at least maybe one of them have a really good night to make them competitive in almost every game in the Big Ten this year?
I think so. I don't think it's not uncommon to have a guy who's 6'6" who can score, but it is uncommon having two of them.
Yeah.
That are bigger that can, score the ball. Lamar Wilkerson is doing things that he didn't do at Sam Houston State. And I think that's the one thing that's really stuck out to me in the first couple games is that he's getting to that second level and he's processing. When he was at Sam Houston State, he got to the second level if he ever did, and it was a jumper or it was some type of floater or it was a lay. And people are going to say, well, who's he going to pass to? That's not a thing. He's playing with Division I players. Like he's going to hit if he needs to. But him being able to process as these aren't like he had 8 assists. That was a career high for him. It's not like he's getting these and like it's like a rotate like around the horn assists. Like no, he's countering a bad closeout. He's getting to the paint. He's throwing lobs. He's got drop offs. These are very creative ways to get guys open and get guys easy looks. As more film comes out on both Tucker and Lamar, you're going to see some of their strengths get taken away for sure. Yeah. But that's where you got to see other guys kind of step up. And I want to see them as really good players be able to counter how other teams want to take away what they want to do.
I think another thing that has kind of been an eye-opener for Indiana fans so far, and again, in particular in the Marquette game, the three-point shooting. It felt like threes were just flying everywhere. And then I go back to those two guys. A lot of them were from both DeVries and from Wilkerson. I think one of them went 6 for 9, and the other one had a pretty good percentage as well. But as a team, 14 for 28, 50% from three. Again, Indiana's not had a team since I believe the Tom Crean days where it felt like everyone just kind of had the green light to shoot three-pointers. Not all of them were the best of shots, but it did feel like for the most part, each three-pointer was taken with, like they knew that it was something that the player could make, if that makes sense.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of team shots, right?
Yeah.
I think you're seeing a lot of team shots. Like I didn't feel there were a lot of, it's my turn to shoot. This guy's just shot the ball X amount of times. I got to get my shots up. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing selfishness. Guys are trying to hit guys who are hot, who've hit 1 or 2 in a row. I think those are some of the nice things, and it does help having 4 guards in the game.
Yeah,
like they have 4 guards, and then Bailey he's a 5, but he's like a 4-5 tweener type, right? Because he's very, very mobile. Even when they go with like Sisley at the 4, was still very way more mobile than Malik was at the 4. So even if when they go quote unquote big, they're still very versatile moving parts. And I think that's going to be really, really important moving forward.
What do you make of Sam Alexis coming off the bench? He had 13 points. I believe he also had a pretty good outing in the season opener as well. Of course, him being on Florida's national championship team. Do you see him as kind of being a reliable 6-man? Maybe ends up being Trent Sisley as well. but I feel like he's somebody Indiana fans will be pleased to see coming off the bench.
His development is going to be very important. I mean, Markelle was the real kind of the first test to see what happens if Billy gets in foul trouble, right? Because he was in foul trouble quite a bit. He didn't play a lot in that game, but they found guys to come in, step up, and make big plays. And I do think that he is someone who's very, very, very important. Sounds super cliche, but like the front court depth on this team is not very good. You know what I mean?
And that's crazy because that's been the opposite for Indiana in the last 5-6 years. The front court has been the strength, and it felt like Indiana had some good guards, but once you got past the Trey Galloways of the world, that sort of thing, you didn't really know what you were going to get production wise from the guards off the bench. Now it's kind of the opposite with what's going on.
Yeah, a lot of guards, not a lot of bigs. At the same time, you got to make it work. And a coach once told me it doesn't matter if you have a defensive mismatch, because they have to guard you too, right? It doesn't just go one way. So can you continue to win your matchup even if you're giving up a little bit on one end? Can you give them a little bit more than what they're giving you? And I think that's what it's going to come down to. I do like what Alexis has been for them in the first couple games. But still, you got to get healthy. Not sure what the status on Dorn is. But he is someone who is going to be more of like that tweener 3-4 who's going to come in and just hunt shots. He's just going to hunt shots. He's probably going to take like 80% of his shots are going to be from a three. Either those or just layups around the hoop. But excited about him. But end of the day, the depth at the front court is still going to be the biggest question because of how big the league is once again, where there's a lot of guys in the front court who are very, very good, like Illinois with the Ivasic twins, and then you got Merkovich, who came out of nowhere, very, very good freshman. You have Hans Steinbach from Washington. You got Purdue with TKR. You got Michigan, who has probably a top 3 front court in the entire country. And like how are they going to be able to counter that and expose it, right? Just because they're bigger doesn't mean they're better. Like, how are you going to be able to expose that on a day-to-day basis? And when people get a hold of what you want to do, they're going to counter that, right? It's going to be a chess match back and forth for 20 games in the Big Ten season. You just want to win over 50% of those.
Yeah. Do you think that it's too early to tell like what this team's ceiling could be? Because right off the bat, like I found myself like I was actually enjoying an Indiana basketball game for the first time in a few years. And not that I never had fun watching them at all in the last 3 or 4 seasons, but there was something different about the product that I was watching on Sunday compared to, it felt like the last couple of seasons, Indiana was just churning out results. And, sometimes they'd go in their favor, sometimes they wouldn't. But this time it just felt like at any time Marquette did something, Indiana had a response to it. Anytime the Golden Eagles went on a run, Indiana countered it, kind of like you were talking about earlier with having this chess match type thing. Indiana had a response to it. Again, not every team's going to be like Marquette, but it just kind of gave me the feeling that Indiana automatically, based on what I've seen so far, has the ability to just be better overall and have a higher ceiling for this season.
I mean, they play fun basketball because when they share the ball is popping. There's not a lot of – the ball doesn't stand still for more than 2 seconds. No. And the ball's always moving, and people are cutting. Guys are shooting shots. They're making shots. They're not just – jacking up rocks. They're on the other end. They're playing very good defense. I mean, intense defense. It's like watching people are going to roll their eyes, but Miles Rice had very good segments last year of playing very good, hard on-ball defense, and like Anthony Leal did too. It feels like there's 4 of them out there. Like, how much did I hype up Leal last year just defensively, how he got after it a lot? I feel like it's like 4 of those guys, and it's I think that's the really cool part is that you're not just getting a team who's like Iowa, right? Who gives up a bucket, but we're going to go down and make this fun. Give up a bucket because all we want to do is shoot. It's not like that. And like you said, when they answered, it was, I think, 65-55. It was like a 10-point game, like 13:30 left. And I was like, this is perfect, right? Because when it's good, it's good. You want to see what happens when it's a little bit shaky. And you know what? I saw guys who were out there who wanted to take and make big shots. It went from, I think they were up by like 15 or 16, got to 10 like this. And I remember the Marquette guard stripped Tatum on the sideline, out of bounds. Marquette was, they were juiced.
They were feeling it,
They were feeling it. But Indiana took it from 10 to 19 in like 2 minutes.
Which that's Indiana teams in the last 3 or 4 years would not do that.
No, it would have gone from 10 to 7 to 6.
And it would have been a grind out game for the rest of the way.
It would have been a 1 or 2 possession game with 3 minutes left, and you have no clue who was about to win. But they said, no, that's just not happening here.
Yeah, it's crazy to see how things have drastically changed. But again, that's the way things happen with college basketball. And I guess one more thing before I let you go, you being a Big Ten guy, who, again, it's only been 1 week so far, who in the Big Ten has kind of stood out so far as whether it be meeting expectations or maybe even exceeding them from what you could expect?
Illinois, Michigan. Illinois and Michigan have kind of they've kind of hit this season just over the top of the head with a sledgehammer. I can't wait for Indiana Purdue.
I think Purdue is still an anomaly in the fact that they're one of the few, I was going to say power teams, really just teams in general, that they don't have to go diving into the transfer portal every single year. They retain so many guys, and that's a good thing. Good on Matt Painter being able to do that. But they're probably one of the only major, at least teams in the top 10 and whatever, that struggled a little bit this past week. Especially, I know they didn't have Trey Kaufman-Rim, but there were some question marks. They lost their number 1 ranking this past or in the AP poll.
Yeah, I could have told you after the after watching their first game, I was like, no, this isn't what I was expecting. A couple of their guys aren't as polished or as ready as I thought they were. There's going to be some interesting rotations when it comes to the guard spot after Braden Smith and Fletcher's making shots. Who gets, is it Meyer? Is it Jakari? Is it CJ? I don't know what that. I know we're not supposed to be talking Purdue a lot, but there's
we can talk whatever.
No, but like there's there are a lot of questions, and without TKR, it is a little bit different. I do want to kind of wait to see what they look like with him. But Clough was oversold a bit. DJ isn't where I thought he would be. Like, he's just not catching it's very, very strange. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe getting them knocked down a peg. Maybe that Oakland game puts that chip back on their shoulder. But they didn't look very hungry. They haven't looked hungry this season. And I expected them to be a little bit hungrier, but Matt Painter's a great coach, and you expect him to make adjustments as he sees fit. But Michigan State had a really good win. Indiana, of course, they've been solid, but there are.
It'll be a while before we really learn Indiana's true, how far they can really go. They're going to have a couple good non-conference games here in the next several weeks. You have Kansas State at home. You got Louisville and Indianapolis. You got Kentucky on the road. You'll learn a lot about the Hoosiers throughout November and early December. Those are great games.
That Indiana Kentucky game is going to be fun because Kentucky
they should
really
play every
Lamar.
Year. All three of those teams, Indiana, Louisville, Kentucky, should play every single year. But yeah, with the Lamar Wilkerson stuff, Lamar Wilkerson very well could have been in Lexington had, I guess, Indiana not thrown the bag at him.
Well, that's the That's the game nowadays.
That's just college basketball nowadays.
That's college basketball, which is insane. I can go off about that for hours, but no, man, I'm really excited about Indiana. I do like what I'm seeing so far, and this is looking very, very forward. But I want to see this. This should make Indiana fans really excited about the future, right? Because you're going to give him a whole year to recruit, a whole year to kind of manage who's coming back, who's leaving. Give him, he's not going to have Tucker or Lamar. How is he going to replace certain guys? That's going to be a lot of fun to talk about for sure. But be excited. Be excited. Just good basketball is being played. The league is going to be tough again, as it always is. You're going to have your bottom like 3-ish teams, and then you're going to have a bunch of teams who are hanging out in the top 50 of the net all season long, where you can't slip up. I expect a very, very fun season.
It'll be a good time. Ant, before I let you go, anything you want to promote for your channel or anything you got going on?
No, man. Everybody knows where to find me. People watching it probably have me blocked or they're
I can't wait for more of I love your videos on social media where you post like missed referee calls or whatever, that sort of thing.
Oh my god.
There's all sorts of stuff, but I love all of it.
Someone's already requested one for which game was it? I swear it was pretty sure it was Indiana Marquette. I think someone requested it. I was like, dude, like it's not even mid-November. Like it's not even we haven't even hit Thanksgiving yet. Come on, man.
We haven't.
But no, man, ADS is real. Ant derangement syndrome is definitely real. They just see my name and they just seethe, and they have no clue why.
Oh yeah. Well, Ant, enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'm sure we'll chat here and there throughout the college basketball season.
For sure, man. Thanks for the invite.
Appreciate Ant Wright for coming on. Been a long time since we've had him on the show. And I know he's excited for college basketball to be back. And I didn't really know how excited I was. But as I said at the beginning of the show, Indiana, I finally feel rejuvenated to watch Indiana basketball for the first time in a while, because it seems like there is a real product on the floor, at least through the first 2 games, that you can be happy about and have you can see that there's potential for reaching Indiana basketball's biggest goals as a program, that sort of thing. So we'll see how things play out. Of course, next 3 games are against opponents that they should easily take care of, with Milwaukee, Incarnate Word, Lindenwood, that sort of thing. But then you got Kansas State at home, not too far from now. That'll be the next bigger test, if you will. And then I'm very much looking forward to when they face Louisville and Kentucky later in the non-conference schedule. Of course, I'm sure many of you guys are excited for that as well. All right, I want to go ahead and talk briefly about the Colts. I want to shout out the Indianapolis Colts, as I should say. Great, awesome, fantastic bounce back win in Germany against the Falcons. Michael Penix Jr., of course, former IU quarterback before he transferred to Washington, now the QB for the Falcons. He himself did not have a great game, but Colts get it done in overtime, 31-25. And my God, let's talk just real briefly about Jonathan Taylor. I think he had a season high in rushing yards maybe two games ago. It was like 165, something like that. He eclipsed that by quite a lot this weekend. 244 yards on 32 carries, 3 touchdowns. And just to throw in some fantasy numbers for you right now, I have him on my fantasy team, 49.6 fantasy points. I don't really know what the all-time high is. I'm sure it's not that. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a few players who have gone over that. But my God, somebody who is making a case for MVP right now. And I don't know how often it goes to a running back. I'm sure this day and age, that's not really the case. But Indianapolis has a hell of a running back, a hell of a football player in Jonathan Taylor, somebody who can carry them not only to the playoffs, but maybe through the playoffs in some way, shape, or form. I do still believe that an AFC championship game appearance is something that is feasible. And even if the stars align, maybe even getting all the way to the Super Bowl. And I don't want to talk too much about that right now, because it does, especially after the dud of an egg that they laid last week. It wouldn't surprise me if things eventually, if they hit a few more bumps in the road. I'll say that. I don't want to say they fall into a slump where they don't recover from that sort of thing. But I think the Colts are in a great position right now. I mean, them along with Denver, they're the two best records in the NFL, right? 8-2. So they've got a bye this week, and then you're really going to learn a lot, if we haven't already, whenever they go on the road to face the Chiefs. And who knows if what the weather will be like in mid-November. I guess maybe close to late November at that point, but it'll be very interesting to see what they look like against a team that, of course, has is he already a 3-time winning Super Bowl quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, and just all that comes with playing the Chiefs, the spotlight. I mean, it's going to be the game that shows the rest of the NFL if the Colts are for real or not. Now, they can lose close and probably still be respected. The Super Bowl chatter, well, if there even is any from someone other than me, will probably die down. But if you win that game, the sky is the limit for Indianapolis at that point. So really good results over in Germany. I mean, winning those overseas games is not easy no matter who you're playing against. But either way, good result, and they'll enjoy an off week before taking on the Chiefs later this month. All right, a couple of non-revenue shout-outs before we round out today's show. We'll start off with men's soccer. They finished off their regular season campaign with a 5-0 shutout of Rutgers at Bill Armstrong Stadium. Good finish to their season. That gives their final regular season record 12-5-1. That's 5 losses and 1 draw. And then I don't believe I guess they're not doing the Big Ten tournament anymore. Maybe I missed that memo for some reason, but they'll soon learn their fate for the NCAA men's soccer tournament. And hopefully they'll be able to go on a run. I mean, they've come up unfortunately short several times over the last, since their last College Cup championship, I should say, in 2012. They've been close to getting more since then. They've just come up short. We'll see if they can go on a run this year and make something of it. All right. Moving over to women's volleyball. Last time we checked in, they had defeated number 19 Penn State, the first time they'd ever won in on the road in Happy Valley. Fun fact, of course, football did the exact same thing this past weekend. But other results from this week, they defeated Iowa 3-2, 3-2 in Bloomington, before unfortunately falling on the road at number 11 Wisconsin. They were swept 3-0. And then they will take on later this week on Friday. They'll face Oregon at home. And then on Sunday, they will take on the Maryland Terrapins. And they got plenty of season left, too. I did not realize how long the women's volleyball regular season was. And then looking over to women's basketball, they began their season. They're 2-0. They defeated Lipscomb 80-46, and then followed that up with the win against UIC 72-56. I was gonna say, hold on, did they just have 2 straight 56-point for the opponent? That wasn't the case. It was 46 and 56. A stat that doesn't matter, but it caught my eye for some reason. But this week they'll take on Marshall tonight at 7:00. That game will be broadcast on Big Ten Plus. And then this Sunday they will travel down to Florida State. I don't know if this is part of a Big Ten ACC challenge sort of thing. I don't believe that it is. But that game will be broadcast on the ACC network. That game at 5:00 this upcoming Sunday. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Appreciate all of you for listening as always. We'll be back next week to react to all that happens this upcoming week for both football, basketball, and much more. Until then, this has been another edition of In Touch with Indiana Sports, powered by thehoosier.com.